Everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, I'm sharing an extraordinary story that will truly make you think about life and what might lie beyond. It's part 2 of the near-death experience of Günter Wagner when he almost dies from a head injury, and it's a story that's both deeply personal and incredibly powerful. His experience is one that defies explanation. He found himself on the brink of death, and what he encountered during that time is something that changed his life forever. Though Günter isn't here to share his story in person, we are honored to bring his journey to you. So, let's dive in and explore what Günter saw, felt, and learned when he crossed over to the other side, and came back to tell the tale. I could hear them say, in complete disbelief, something like, Look, there is a little soul! Look, there is a young soul! What is he doing here? How did he come here? Voices in this world were actually no voices at all. Something was thought, and I immediately understood what they were talking about. What I am reporting now are impressions and not the meaning of actual words. These impressions were, however, so clear that I had no doubts whatsoever. I continued complaining that I would not know anyone in this bright world and that I had been forced to come there. The voices drew nearer. However, I could not see anybody. I simply sensed their presence, which was very fine with me. I now knew that there were beings in that world with whom I was able to communicate. Beings, however, that were simultaneously strangers, but friendly ones. The beings urged me to go back where I had come from. I thought this very ridiculous being now a part of this new world. Moreover, even if I really wanted to go back, which was impossible, how should I proceed? In addition, even if I did succeed in finding my way back, I would not have the slightest idea where my native world, Earth, lay. Then I sensed that they wanted to force me out of this world. I became very upset and I thought, no one can force me to leave this world. I have a right to stay here, because I am a part of it. The two beings must have understood what I was thinking, because I could not sense their voices any longer. Then, one of the beings guided me, I do not know how, to a place that I had not seen before. The other one must have gone away calling for assistance in attempting to find the right approach of how a situation like that should be handled. This place turned out to be a meadow with many flowers in it. It was a wonderful meadow, but I knew that it was only an image of a meadow, somehow conjured up and suspended in this new world. The being asked me to play on the meadow, but I could not. I simply did not know how. All of a sudden, I was aware of a tiny bright light far away in the sky, but rapidly coming nearer and nearer. It was shaped like a ball, and it was indescribably bright. I tried to shade my eyes, but I did not need to. Despite its incredible brightness and brilliance, it did not dazzle me a bit. Presently, this light stopped at a distance right above me. It was a sun about the same size as the sun of our world, but it was indescribably brighter. I kept staring at this sun, wondering how a light could possess such brilliance. The brightness of the lights in the black world was brilliant, too, but of a different nature. Suddenly I realized that it was scrutinizing me very closely. On that, it opened up, and a beam came pouring down on me. And I heard it shouting at me, I can destroy you if you do not tell the truth about your being here. I answered, but I do not know anything else but the truth. Then something happened that I would never forget. Love, pure, utter love came pouring down on me along with incredible warmth. My whole soul or being was immersed in this love. He lifted me up and gave me a kiss on my mouth. This being of light loved me deeply, infinitely deeply, and more intensively. I was happy. I could have stayed in this beam of love forever. If my story had been a lie, the being of light would have annihilated me. I had a clear conscience anyway, so there was no reason to fear anything. Gradually the loving became weaker, and I felt that something was wrong with me, something that made it very difficult for the light to continue with his love. He was trying not to tell me why. Finally, however, he was not able to keep it up any longer, and he quickly said, You have a smelly breath. You need a bath. I believe this is a reference to the purification process many souls need to undergo after death. The phrase, smelly breath, is probably a reference to smelly thoughts, or negative thoughts which are incompatible with existence in the higher afterlife realms. In these realms, communication is telepathic, so if you enter into the afterlife with stinking thinking, such thoughts become aware to everyone in that realm as a form of thought bacteria. I received the impression that I would have to take a bath similar to that I was used to on Earth, but by dipping the whole body. It was made plain to me that this process was going to be unpleasant, but I could stop it when it became too painful for me to bear. Although I could not comprehend the reason, I was willing to do what the being of light wanted me to do. I was lifted up and put into a red light. I closed my eyes. I could not feel anything. I did not know for how long I had been in this state. After some time, however, I realized that I was being tossed about rather rigorously. It was like being in a washing machine. I cried, "I think that is enough." Immediately, I was lowered down and the love and the warmth were switched off, but I still remained in this beam, or sphere. Suddenly the sun started to move backwards, changing its colors to a deep dark red. It kept moving back into the sky until it was a very tiny red light, like a point. Then it began to move very quickly. At one time I saw the bright sun on the left side and then the red sun on the right side, dancing, as it were, from left to right and from right to left. I felt that the sun wanted to communicate with me. I thought to myself that up here the suns cannot speak but just move about, and that this was their way of talking. Then it stood still and I saw the bright sun in front of the tiny red sun. Nevertheless, I could not make out what this was all about. I regarded the whole spectacle more as a funny and entertaining act than anything else. However, it was not funny at all. I suddenly felt that I should be transferred back into the world with the shiny moon, and I remembered the unpleasant pain and the cold that I had encountered there. Suddenly I realized that the bright sun in front of me was the shiny moon, and that the red sun had the moon safely under control, making in fact one sun. This was the message that the sun had wanted to get across. Then the being of light wanted to talk to me on a man-to-man basis. He placed me on top of a high mountain where I had to sit on a large piece of rock. I asked him why he had wanted to destroy me, and he told me that there existed also evil but very powerful and cunning beings who were his enemies with whom he had been constantly fighting. He also told me that I had to warn my world against them, and I automatically nodded in agreement. He said that his enemies had wanted to play a trick on him by using me as a kind of trap, but he had to defend this world and the black one. His world, however, would be much easier for him to defend, because the evil beings had no power in it, and he had no power in the black world. I realized, having been positioned in such a way that I was able to overlook a huge stretch of clouds that were marvelously illuminated from below. Suddenly a flash of lightning, whose intense light was much greater than that of the bright world, forced me to look up. Then a big bang followed, but I was totally unperturbed. On the horizon, I saw smoke bulging out of the clouds and gradually taking on the shape of a mushroom. It grew larger and larger and brighter and brighter. I was in complete awe. Suddenly everything was gone. I heard the light call, "Look here!" I turned around, and I heard screams and I saw fire and smoke almost surrounding me. I did not comprehend what this was all about, when suddenly the light cried, "I will do everything in my power to prevent this from happening." Then everything was over. Again, the bright light wanted to talk about his enemies. However, I was still very impressed with what had just happened. So I thought to myself, "Oh no, not again!" However, the light made me aware of the fact that this war had been going on for a very long time, and the evil beings had become more and more powerful, and if this continued he would not see any means of preventing them from taking over everything. He said that if the enemy had really succeeded in coming into his world, the war would have been lost. He would have been powerful enough, no doubt, to fight them off, but the war would have been lost in the long run. He was really afraid of losing this war. Then it was intimated to me that he needed help. I wanted to help him, and I replied, "Yes, but how?" He answered that the only way I could help him was by going back and telling my world what had happened to me. I was completely shocked to hear him say so, because I did not want to go back. I was so depressed that I almost started to cry. All of a sudden he asked, "Would you like to know what will become of you later on in your life?" I looked up and answered cheerfully, Yes, I would love to, the light said. You will become a teacher. To a certain extent I was disappointed and repeated, A teacher? The light replied. Imagine a teacher in your world and show me what it is like being one. I imagined, quite vividly, a teacher who was standing in front of his pupils giving lessons. The light said, No, not that kind of teacher. I was then thinking of a university professor lecturing to his students. The light said, Not that kind of teacher. You are going to teach the university teachers. I was surprised and almost could not believe it. Besides, I considered this quite difficult. I imagined a map of my world, and I saw myself in future life going from place to place, from university to university, teaching the university teachers of my world. But the light said, No, not like that. They will come to you. I replied, To my house? The light said, Yes, imagine such a situation. I imagined our house on earth, our living room, and I saw myself sitting on a chair opposite a stern-looking, respectable professor, trying to teach him. However, I failed. I was too embarrassed and too shy. Suddenly the light became quite enthusiastic, and said that I was to be a teacher of a new type, and there would be a lot more to come. I was disappointed to hear him say so. Nevertheless, the light wanted to show what it meant being the first. He asked, What do you think? How many people are there in your world? I said, 40 millions maybe? The light replied, No, many more. You must not only think of those who are alive. Take into account all the human beings that are dead, and you will have a huge number of people. Let us go back in time, as far back as possible, and tell me how far back we should go. I said, Middle Ages? The light replied, No, farther back. I said, The birth of Christ? The light said, No, farther back. I was thinking hard. Adam and Eve? The light replied, No, not that. Go farther back in time and think of what you have learned in your history lessons. I was thinking for some time. Eventually I blurted out, Stone Age? He was disappointed, and he said, You should have known better, but I think Stone Age will do. He then told me that in that age there were not many people living on Earth. However, they were free to walk wherever they wanted to go, and that there were no borders that would keep them from roaming about. I said, How beautiful! I was imagining a map of Europe, which I had seen in my atlas, with all its borders. I did not have much time to think about all this, because, all of a sudden, I saw human beings back on Earth. I was looking down on a group of people, men and women, who were dressed in furs, sitting around a campfire. I could see a woman with her baby on her back, and a man who was standing in front of the group obviously making a speech. Another man stood a little apart. All of a sudden, I heard a loud cry of disappointment, and the guttural voice of the man in front of the group of people. I did not understand what he was saying. The scene disappeared and the light said, I am going to translate for you, but you must concentrate very hard. I certainly wanted to do so, because I was eager to hear what this man was talking about. Therefore, I started to concentrate. The light said, You call this concentration? You have to concentrate much harder. I was amazed to hear him say so, because I considered my first attempt quite satisfactory. Nevertheless, he wanted me to do better. The light said, Let's have another go. I closed my eyes and began concentrating extremely hard. However, the light was not in the least satisfied. He said, I think it is useless. However, suddenly the tone of his voice became very gentle, and he came close to me and said tenderly, The reason for my asking you to concentrate so hard is that, later on, you should be able to tell everything as accurately as possible. So you need to concentrate like you have never done before on what this man is going to say. And he added in a different voice that betrayed his disappointment, This is a final attempt. If you fail this time, it will be no use trying any longer. I was determined to do my best. I closed my eyes again and tried as hard as I could to listen to what I was supposed to hear. All of a sudden, I was able to understand what the man was saying. He said, Now we have proof. You have just heard for yourselves. What we have been suspecting is true. He who took on the difficult task of making such a dangerous journey has just returned and confirmed our suspicion. They want to resist us. However, we will not put up with that. I have told you again and again. Now the time has come to fight them. We must not wait until they have become stronger. They are still weak now. It is true. Nevertheless, think of the future. We will have to attack them now. He was addressing the group of people in a very impressive manner. I was completely impressed, and I could understand very well why he was forced to attack his enemies. But suddenly I heard this other man who was standing apart say, "I am primarily a hunter and fight the animals. I am not going to fight weaklings who start running away the very moment they catch sight of us. Every hunter would hurt his pride and honor if he did such a thing. We hunters fight the animals, which are by far more dangerous. Many brave hunters have hurt themselves in their fights. Nevertheless, we are prepared and willing to take the risk because we are hunters. I will never fight those weaklings." As for me, I could not get along with what he was saying. After all, one had to fight one's enemies. I could not understand that it should be more honorable to fight animals than people. However, I could not go on contemplating such things, because my eyes were forced to the ground that gradually began to move. At first slowly, but then faster and faster until I was no longer able to distinguish any details. The movement suddenly came to a halt. I saw grassland in front of me, and in the distance there was the edge of a forest with very high trees. Suddenly, I was placed in the woods. Although I could not see anything, I knew that I was in this forest, that is, right in the middle of a village. I could hear the voices of some people, and I heard someone say, "We cannot run away forever." How many times did we have to run away? Many, many times. Such beasts! They come and destroy our village! And every time we run away. But not this time! This time we are going to stay. It cannot go on like that forever. I could feel fear and anxiety. They would have liked to run away as they had done so many times before. However, this time they had made up their minds and intended to stick to their firm resolve. However, they were all full of fear. Some voices said, "They eat meat." Imagine that! Meat! In addition, they build huge fires in the prairie. They dance around the fires and bathe in blood. However, what remains the worst, they eat meat. The very thought of it! In the end, they are going to eat our flesh too. A voice, a woman's voice, who was sitting in her hut, kept saying again and again, "I am afraid. I am terribly afraid. Oh, how scared I am. I am scared, so scared." I was able to feel distinctly her anxiety. Her fear grew stronger and stronger. She kept saying, "I am scared, I am scared." Her fear began to take hold of me. At first I thought, why is she so afraid? She must be hysterical. How on earth can you be so afraid? Nevertheless, I was being immersed deeper and deeper into her feelings of sheer fear. I could not stand it any longer. I thought to myself, I wish she stopped worrying now. It was extremely unpleasant indeed. Suddenly everything was over, and the light said to me, "If they had done nothing, nothing would have happened. It is true, they would have come all the same. However, nothing would have happened. This, however, will again lead to further dead persons." He was stressing the words, dead persons, and again. I felt great apprehension on the part of the light concerning the large number of dead people, so I asked, "Again?" Because I was of the opinion that I had watched the first human beings on earth. The light answered, however, "Hundreds of thousands." I was amazed at this, and I could feel how the light was suffering from the great number of dead people. I am not quite sure about what happened next, but all of a sudden, I heard a thunderous, angry voice accusing mankind, including myself, of destroying his garden on earth. He shouted, "I made you human beings a wonderful garden, and you destroy everything. Human beings poison the water and the air. They destroy everything." At first, the effect of their work of destruction was limited. However, it got worse and worse. They destroy everything that they can lay their hands on. Although man is constantly looking for other places, he has only this one place, Earth. You could see for yourself. And if they continue to destroy everything, they will blow up the whole earth in the end. I did not want to leave him forever. So I asked him if I could come back after having told my world and stay with him permanently. He said, "No, you have to go back and live." Although I still did not know my way back, this time I had no doubts whatsoever. If the being of light wanted me to go back and live, I simply had to. It did not matter any longer how it could be done. This light had absolute power. Nevertheless, I could still not understand why. Then the being of light was gone. One of the other beings brought me back to Earth. I do not know how. I only heard, while being tucked back into my body, a snapping sound like the sound that can be heard when you put the lid on top of a mess tin securing it with the catch. When I opened my eyes, I remember starting to cry. I do not want to die, I do not want to die, and I do not want to die. Then I picked myself up and in approaching the staircase, I wondered if there would ever be a way back, whereupon I heard a voice shout at me. "Amend yourself!" And another voice said, "You must kill your mother!" Then I climbed up the stairs down which I had been jumping so happily. I could only feel a minor swelling on the top of my head, which was not particularly painful. I hope this story has resonated with you as much as it did with me. If it did, be sure to leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, experiences, or any questions you might have. And if you found this video meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and remember, sometimes the most profound insights come from the stories we least expect. Until next time, take care and stay curious.